Today we're breaking down one of the most complicated and emotional conflicts in the world, the Israel-Gaza conflict. It's a conflict that affects millions of people, influences global politics, shapes international news, and still remains deeply misunderstood by many. In this video, we'll explain the history, the key players, how we got here, what everyday people are going through, and why peace has become so difficult. This is the Israel-Gaza conflict, clearly explained. The Israel-Gaza conflict is a long-running struggle between Israel, a recognized country, and Palestinian groups in Gaza, especially Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. The conflict includes military operations, rocket attacks, airstrikes, blockades, political disputes, and decades of failed peace negotiations. But to understand why this keeps happening, we must go back to where it started. The story begins in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when two national movements emerged: Jewish nationalism, also known as Zionism, which called for a homeland for Jewish people, and Arab nationalism, which called for independence for the Arab people living in the region. At the time, the area was known as Palestine, under Ottoman control, later under British rule after World War I. Both groups claimed deep historical and cultural ties to the same land. After the Holocaust during World War II, global support grew for a Jewish homeland. In 1947, the United Nations proposed dividing Palestine into a Jewish state, an Arab state, and Jerusalem under international administration. Jewish leaders accepted the plan. Arab leaders rejected it, believing it was unfair. In 1948, Israel declared independence, leading neighboring Arab countries to launch a war. Israel survived and expanded its territory. For Palestinians, this event is called Al-Nakba, the catastrophe, because more than 700,000 Palestinians fled or were displaced during the violence. This remains one of the most sensitive issues today. After the 1948 war, Gaza came under Egyptian control, while the West Bank was controlled by Jordan. In 1967, another war broke out, the Six-Day War, and Israel captured Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. This marked the beginning of Israeli military occupation in those territories. Since then, Gaza has become one of the most densely populated places on Earth. In the 1980s, during the First Intifada, a new Palestinian group emerged, Hamas. Hamas is a Palestinian Islamist political and militant organization. It opposes Israel's existence and is designated as a terrorist organization by Israel, the United States, the European Union, and others. In 2006, Hamas won Palestinian elections. In 2007, after a violent conflict with the rival Palestinian faction Fatah, Hamas took full control of Gaza. Since then, Gaza has been governed by Hamas and placed under a blockade by Israel and Egypt, restricting the movement of people and goods. Israel argues the blockade is necessary to prevent weapons from reaching Hamas. Critics argue the blockade severely harms civilians. Both statements contain truth. There are many reasons the conflict keeps escalating. There are disputes over land and borders. Gaza faces humanitarian crises caused by shortages of medicine, electricity, clean water, and economic opportunity. Armed groups fire rockets into Israel, and Israel responds with airstrikes that target militants but often harm civilians. Jerusalem remains a major flashpoint because the city is sacred to Jews, Muslims, and Christians. And decades of failed peace negotiations have left major issues unresolved, including refugee rights, Israeli settlements, security concerns, borders, and the political status of Jerusalem. A major turning point occurred on October 7, 2023. Hamas launched a surprise attack into Israel, killing civilians and soldiers and taking hostages. It was one of the deadliest days in Israeli history. Israel responded with a large-scale military campaign in Gaza. The result has been massive destruction, thousands of casualties, millions displaced, and a severe humanitarian crisis. This event intensified the conflict dramatically and drew global attention. The human cost of this conflict is immense. In Gaza, families face destroyed homes, damaged hospitals, limited clean water, food shortages, power outages, and widespread displacement. Children grow up surrounded by trauma and uncertainty. In Israel, civilians face rocket attacks, sirens, shelters, fear of kidnappings, and the emotional impact of the October 7th attack. Ordinary people on both sides suffer the most, far more than political or military leaders. Achieving peace has proven very difficult. Both sides carry deep historical wounds. Palestinians are politically divided between Hamas in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Israeli politics is also sharply divided. Israel fears continued rocket attacks and terrorism. Palestinians fear occupation, displacement, and loss of rights. Israeli settlements in the West Bank complicate the situation further. International political alliances add pressure, and decades of violence have destroyed trust on both sides. The world should care about this conflict because it influences stability across the Middle East, affects global politics, impacts international alliances, shapes public opinion worldwide, and drives humanitarian crises that require global support. It also affects Jewish and Muslim communities around the world. The conflict has become a symbol of unresolved struggle and human suffering, and it cannot be ignored. Even in the darkness, there is still hope. There are Israelis and Palestinians working for peace and coexistence. International humanitarian organizations continue to provide aid. Diplomats push for ceasefires. Young people on both sides demand change. Communities call for a future without endless war. Peace is difficult, but it is not impossible. It begins with awareness, understanding, and refusing to accept violence as a permanent reality. The Israel-Gaza conflict is more than a headline. It is a painful, complex human story, rooted in history, identity, tragedy, and hope. Thank you for watching this Global Explainer. If you want more clear and powerful documentaries from around the world, subscribe to Legacy History Docs. And please, keep all those affected by this conflict in your thoughts.